Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 66. It starts out with Salem not being relatable because he's appreciating his appearance, when he clearly hated being turned into a stuffed animal earlier. Harvey's been trying to avoid Sabrina more and more. Why would he want to do that? It's so weird that he's shy now. Salem says she could keep busy with homework instead, and she tells him that he's sounding like Hilda now. First, lampshading it doesn't make it good writing. If you know it's out of character, don't write it. Second, why does she say Hilda and not Zelda? It's common sense to have the ants have different personalities. It's especially obvious to not have the personality they each have be Zelda, the blandest one. And seriously, there's no reason Harvey would have even told her that he always loved her if he's the type to be too shy and try to avoid her constantly. Why did he even do that then? Sabrina won't call up Landra because she's weirded out hanging out with her and Shinji now that they're together, and when she's with them, they act like she's invisible. Still don't get why they would get along so well when they have nothing in common besides being witches. Shinji calls her and asks her to help him move to an apartment in Greendale, even though he's a teenager, and obviously could just point to instantly move all of his stuff to where he wants it to be. You'd think since he's supposed to be reckless, he wouldn't even consider that he would run out of magic by doing that. So he wouldn't care about saving magic. At least it's unique that he lives with his brother and has no parents, even if that blatantly contradicts an earlier issue, where he was first introduced. I like that it skipped past what he said in the phone call, but never mind. Then after his brother thanks Sabrina and Landra for coming to help, the brother explains anyways. The brother says that this apartment is just a ruse. Their mortal uncle from Japan has decided to visit them. Why do they need extra magical help to get the apartment in order? Each witch is omnipotent. None of them are terrible at magic. He says the walls are thin, so they have to be subtle with their magic. Apparently. So he warns them not to do big zaps. If people could actually hear magic, why doesn't anyone act like it in the entirety of the franchise? Why doesn't anyone look at Sabrina every time she uses magic? Sabrina's naturally mad that Shinji only called her over here when he needed something and then spent the whole time ignoring her. Then after they're done, their uncle shows up and somehow he also has blue hair. Because we're being treated like idiots. At least explain that they all dyed their hair to match one of their family members. Like, to honor him. The witch ones having blue hair I could understand. I always assumed that was why Shinji had blue hair. The guy didn't hear Salem speak, somehow, and he hugged Salem for being supposedly cute, even though he looks awful. Why did he pull Salem's tail? Too much of my time is being wasted by him. Shinji thanks Sabrina for stopping by and pushes her out of the house. So she gets mad at him, and then asks Landra what that was about. She's told that he was just nervous about Salem being there. And somehow Sabrina asks Landra why she wasn't kicked out too. Go figure, he wanted to introduce his girlfriend to his uncle. Sabrina asks why she feels so jealous. Because she doesn't really love Harvey and I feel sorry for him. Salem refuses to help her out in math class too when he already helped her in history class, which he refused to do earlier in the comic. Amy says that Sabrina's too old to be talking to a stuffed animal. Sabrina says, aren't you getting a little old to pick on sophomores? It's obvious that her insulting her back isn't enough. She lampshades that Harvey's not really her boyfriend if he barely spends time with her. And she tells Sabrina that when she asked Harvey if they were together, he said, not really. Because forced drama. With a normal writer, I'd know that Amy was lying. But with the random character derailment that Harvey got, I know that she's telling the truth. It's unprofessional to just randomly change a character. People like the characters for who they are, not for who you want them to be. Changing them in the canon at will is probably going to cut down on your audience. Too bad Sabrina pads out the plot by not immediately talking to Harvey about what Amy said. Instead, she changes her mind and he walks away, so because she's a coward, that was a waste of a page, and I'm not looking forward to the rest of the plot having her boring angsting. I'm not going to bother reading her diary entries, because the text in handwriting doesn't look the same as the other text, so it's completely unappealing. And I'm already bored out of my mind and desperate for the final issue of the comic. I don't care about romance drama. I want to see cool stuff happen. I'd rather see a dragon show up. And I already know how she's feeling. The writer should have known that. Somehow Zelda finds a stuffed animal from Japan that looks just like Salem, which could only be explained by Shinji's uncle doing that. And somehow all sorts of students in Sabrina's high school start wearing Salem merchandise that doesn't even bear his actual name. The only explanation is that he was told that the Salem stuffed animal was made by Sabrina herself. I didn't need to see a page where somehow Amy doesn't believe Sabrina when she points out that everybody copied her. Somehow Amy says that's not true because she doesn't have all of the accessories, just one toy. And because this writer is a horrible amateur, Amy was still used in the plot without immediately being humiliated with magic abuse. So as usual, there's no actual reason for her to show up. Sabrina apologizes and says she won't bring Salem to school anymore. This story just pisses me off. Then Sabrina sees a commercial with Salem's likeness, and Salem is the only relatable person here when he looks awful. Of course he's humiliated. He wanted to be known for his magical prowess and the way the world trembled because of it. So he hasn't changed. Why is there a story about this? Are people really dumb enough that this is reflecting what most of the fans think? Or is it just the writer who's wasting an entire issue on a stupid opinion that, no, trust me, Salem totally looks good this way. It's not obnoxious at all. He begs Sabrina to tell Shinji's uncle to stop. All she has to do is brainwash him with a single point. If the council didn't see Shinji exposing magic, they wouldn't see Sabrina pointing. And they don't spy on mortals, so they wouldn't know that the uncle was just brainwashed. Instead, she'll waste a lot of the story on boredom. So she has to beg Shinji to let her meet with him instead of just teleporting to him. She thanks him for meeting her. Then he says he bets her lip gloss tastes good, wasting a bunch of my time on something that's awkward because he has a girlfriend. He agrees to talk to his uncle and she hugs him and thanks him. Since this is the same guy who's fine with trying to get her to break the law, exposing magic, and breaking a rule in school, you'd think that he would brainwash his uncle. Then my time is wasted even more with Salem having a nightmare where he gets called out on what he's become, as this guy glorifies the evil person he used to be. It's a dream, so it's blatant padding. I couldn't tell it was supposed to be the human him because it's a different art style. Salem realizes because of the dream that he could be making big bucks off this. No one shows up at his meeting because the fad ended. He was weeks too late. And Shinji talking to his uncle had nothing to do with it, and instead he came up with a more popular idea. We see the talking dog come back, and everyone assumes she's a robot. But wouldn't people want to know who made her? They must assume she's a biomass eating robot, which would explain why they don't see that she's alive from the fact that she eats. I guess they think that her breathing doesn't actually mean she's breathing, it's just for show. A lot of people want to get an autograph from the annoyingly peppy chatterbox I never thought I would see again. You would think that scientists would also want to see her to try to find out exactly how she worked. They would be really impressed by that kind of amazing robotic technology. I mean, they'd know that it's still someone's pet, but they would really want to know who made this dog instead of it just being a pointless end gag the writer would forget about. And the pointless story ends with Salem somehow agreeing to watch a movie about the Salem doll. Sabrina 2000s comic issue 67. And the cover immediately spoils that there's going to be another crossover with Josie and the Pussycats. Wasn't it obvious they couldn't top the last one? Why do it again? It's obvious that the writer isn't creative at times like this. It's so pathetic that Sabrina thinks that her first double date proves that she and Harvey are a couple. Even though he was pretending otherwise last issue, how did she forget that? I'm just wondering why she doesn't date someone else. He's a horrible boyfriend. She tells off, oh never mind, she was just imagining herself telling Amy off. She's too cowardly and lame to do it. She wishes Harvey would put his arm around her or something. Why is he so lame now? There's no excuse for this. They go to a restaurant on Shinji's suggestion, and Sabrina's jealous that he's happier in his relationship than her. She tries to offer Harvey some food to copy them, and he says he hates spicy food. Just break up with him already! This is just cringeworthy to see. How did the writer not realize that Harvey and Sabrina was a fan-preferred couple by now? There's no way this couldn't have pissed people off. Shinji points out that Josie and the Pussycats are coming to town, and he's stupidly forced to say they're pretty so that Landra can get mad at him and tell him they'd better get some movie. Go figure, Harvey doesn't hold her hand. Even though he did when he said that he always loved her. So again, this is completely arbitrary forced drama. Sabrina holds his hand and it's clammy. He says he's not feeling good and has to go home, and ditches her to have some rest. I really wish he wasn't in the comic anymore. This isn't Harvey. If he wore nerd glasses, it'd be a lot more honest. You know, they could have explained that he had the witch sensing gene, like that character from the 90s sitcom. And that's why he's always been so nervous around her and didn't ask her out, because he subconsciously knew she was a witch and was scared of her. At least Landra apologizes to Sabrina for Harvey leaving. Then a photographer goes over to them and one of his models didn't show up, and he needs someone to stand in for the shoot. Somehow Shinji would be perfect for the job. Why does the writer keep characters showing the worst looking character in the comic? Telling us he looks good over and over again won't make me think he's good looking. He needs a haircut, at the very least. Unrealistically, he's hired for a fashion shoot for a magazine without being told to get hair dye first. This is the next plot? Are you kidding me? First we got an entire issue wasted on nothing but the story shilling Salem's bad design, and now there's an entire story dedicated to this. As of now, a bunch of random students are fawning over him behind his back, and one of them wonders how he's never at school anymore. I don't think any of the story matters. Sabrina reveals that he's hardly shown up for school because of his modeling career, and not because his assignment to study the mortal world for no reason is finally over. Landra says it's none of their business, and it's satisfying that she and Sabrina have the same problem because of how unsympathetic she's been portrayed as recently. She says she hardly sees him too. Awesome! He has every reason to not care that he's gonna fail mortal school because this is the start of his job, and he's not supposed to live in the mortal realm. Good point. He hugs Landra saying that he cares about her and has to leave. He goes to magic school anyways, because he can't go anywhere in the mortal realm without girls following him around. So he likes feeling like a regular person again. He's considered to be full of himself, but unfortunately he's right. He wants to give the girls tickets to the Josie show because he'll be modeling with them tomorrow. He calls Landra one of his friends and gets told that they'll have to wait outside. It sure is forced that he didn't call her his girlfriend just to force drama, again. This is why artists should never be writers. It seems like most of the time, it doesn't work out. This is just like Evan Stanley. Even Akira has a mixed bag when it comes to writing good stories. Landra realizes that he doesn't want people to know he has a girlfriend, so that he can flirt all he wants. Sabrina gets mad and protective of her bad friend, and is told that invisibility is too risky. I wish she said that she's worried about someone bumping into them and discovering magic. That has to be it, but without elaborating, she just looks like she's here to disagree with her for the sake of it again, as well as disappointing me because I just want to see her use magic in the mortal realm already. That's supposed to be the appeal of the whole series. Since when is she the Sally to her Sonic? Sabrina decides to spy on Shinji with her eyeshadow. Well, at least that's a lot more creative than other things she's done before. So they see him flirting. Somehow Sabrina has faith in him to be a faithful guy, despite knowing him, and he flirts with the blonde one. In this generic art style, she looks too much like Sabrina. He's considered a diva, asks for a specific drink, and doesn't want the powder to get in his eyes. Who would? And a lot of people like specific drinks. Of course he would ask for one. He then demands lotion on his hands and asks where is everyone. The girls see him as a brat they can't recognize anymore, and the bandmates would rather do schoolwork than spend time with him. He's told that one day they're not gonna be young and popular, and they're gonna need real jobs, and that'll be impossible unless they finish school. The writer's bias is sinking in here, because she has one of the bandmates call her own career not a real job. They're still entertaining people. That's more of a real job than a lot of jobs, like telemarketing. It's a lot of hard work. I can't help but feel like the only reason they're saying these responsible things is that they're the main characters of their own stories. So they've gotta be role models. After Shinji gets asked out, Landra's relieved when he turns her down because he has a girlfriend. I guess it was because he got turned off when they said they wanted to focus on school. Because they won't have enough time for him when he's not around Landra. Sabrina has that totally go over her head and thinks he's actually serious about Landra. Even though he flirted with other people. The girls go to the concert and Sabrina gets told that Shinji quit off screen. I could have seen it happen so it'd sink in better. When them being at the concert adds nothing to the story at all. Why would I care about merely seeing Shinji interact with the Josie band, and not a real Sabrina character? That's not much of a crossover. So Shinji quit because he didn't want to take off his shirt, and he didn't simply point to make it so that whatever thing he's trying to hide... The story ends with them saying that he can't hide something that's always been there, but I hate his design too much to care enough to look at his unappealing torso enough to see what he's talking about. I'll see it in the ending. It's obvious that he would have just used magic to hide the thing he doesn't want to show off. We didn't even need that justification. And what did he expect in a modeling career? Actually, he would have just brainwashed that person into deciding not to make him take off his shirt. He got away with exposing magic in Sabrina's school constantly, so he would have gotten away with that too. So it should have been simply written to quit because Josie's band changed his mind about not going to school anymore. The entire band, aside from the blonde, had the same personality. How boring. It sure was shady of Shinji's uncle to make merchandise off Salem without paying Sabrina's family, or even asking permission. So this was an awful story, and sadly it was one of the memorable ones, where somehow an entire story is based off the fact that we're supposed to think Salem's cute, so Shinji's mortal uncle creates a bunch of merchandise off Salem. Well, that had no self-awareness. I really hope I'm not a minority in completely hating the way Salem looks. And again, it's another plot that could have been solved immediately. Shinji has no problem breaking the rules and always gets away with it, so we would just point to instantly make him stop producing merchandise. Well, I guess he assumed Salem would be fine with the merchandise being produced without permission. So this was the second story in a row about shilling a bad character design constantly throughout the whole issue. This time, Shinji somehow becomes a model, instead of him being told by the grown-ass adult, I think it's pretty weird that you have blue hair. Maybe you should have a haircut. Also, what was the point of having Josie and the Pussycats show up? It could have been any band for all it mattered. Shinji only quit the modeling job because he didn't want to take off his shirt.